Blanco was staring at the small velvet box in his hands, knowing that in just 24 hours he would be asking the most important question of his life. But he had no idea that the phone conversation Selena Gomez was about to overhear would completely change everything he had so carefully planned for what was supposed to be the most perfect proposal of all time. It was November 15th, 2024, and Benny had been planning this moment for 3 months. Every detail had been meticulously thought out, from the reservation at Nobu Malibu, Selena's favorite restaurant, to the custom-designed engagement ring that had been crafted by celebrity jeweler Lorraine Schwartz. The ring was a stunning 8-carat oval diamond set in platinum, with smaller diamonds forming a delicate halo around the center stone. It was elegant, timeless, and exactly the kind of ring he'd imagined on Selena's finger since the day he realized he wanted to spend his life with her. Benny had even coordinated with Selena's team to ensure she'd have the evening free, telling her business manager Sarah that he wanted to plan a special date night without revealing the true purpose. He'd arranged for a private section of the restaurant, complete with candles, rose petals, and a string quartet that would play some of the songs he'd produced over the years, including I Can't Get Enough, the track that had brought them together professionally long before they fell in love personally. The proposal speech had been written and rewritten dozens of times, practiced in front of his bathroom mirror, and even rehearsed with his closest friends who had sworn to secrecy. Benny wanted everything to be perfect because Selena deserved nothing less than perfection. She'd been through so much in her previous relationships, dealt with public heartbreak and media scrutiny, and Benny was determined to give her a proposal story that would be theirs alone, beautiful and private, and exactly what she'd always dreamed of. But beyond just the romantic elements, Benny had also spent considerable time thinking about the practical aspects of their future together. He'd been researching wedding venues that could accommodate both intimate family gatherings and the inevitable media attention that would surround their nuptials. He'd even started preliminary conversations with his financial advisors about how to best merge their assets and business interests, wanting to approach their marriage as true partners in every sense of the word. The engagement ring itself had been a months-long process of collaboration with Lorraine Schwartz, who had designed pieces for some of the biggest celebrities in Hollywood. Benny had studied photos of rings Selena had admired on red carpets and in fashion magazines, noting her preference for classic, elegant designs over flashy or trendy styles. He'd even secretly asked her assistant for insights into Selena's favorite jewelry pieces, trying to understand her aesthetic preferences without arousing suspicion. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn that would test everything they thought they knew about love, family, and acceptance. The night before the planned proposal, Selena was at Benny's house, staying over as she often did when her schedule allowed. She'd been working late on some rare beauty projects in his home office while he'd been in the studio laying down tracks for his upcoming album. The rare beauty work had been particularly demanding lately, as the company had just reached a new milestone in international expansion. Selena had been personally involved in every aspect of the brand's growth, from product development to marketing campaigns, and the stress of managing a billion-dollar company while maintaining her acting and music careers had been taking its toll. Benny had noticed that she seemed more exhausted than usual, more prone to the kind of perfectionist anxiety that sometimes kept her awake at night. Around 10:30 p.m., Selena had finished her work and was heading to the kitchen to get some water when she heard Benny's voice from the living room, speaking in the kind of hushed, serious tone that immediately caught her attention. He was on the phone, and something in his voice made her pause in the hallway, not wanting to interrupt what seemed like an important conversation. "Mom, I understand your concerns, but I need you to understand something too," Benny was saying, his voice carrying a mixture of frustration and determination that Selena had never heard before. "This isn't just some celebrity relationship that's going to fizzle out in 6 months. I'm serious about Selena, more serious than I've ever been about anything in my life." Selena's heart began racing as she realized she was overhearing a conversation she wasn't meant to hear, but something kept her frozen in place, unable to move away from the doorway. In the months they'd been together, she'd never heard Benny speak with such intensity about their relationship, especially not in the context of defending it to his family. "I know she's famous, Mom. I know her world is complicated, but that doesn't change how I feel about her or what I want for our future," Benny continued, his voice getting slightly louder with emotion. "And honestly, some of the things you said last week really hurt. Selena is not going to ruin my career or complicate my life. She's made my life better in every possible way." Selena felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Benny's mother had concerns about their relationship, had said things about Selena that hurt Benny enough that he felt compelled to defend her. The woman she'd met multiple times, who had always been warm and welcoming to her face, had been expressing doubts about their relationship behind closed doors. Listen, I get it, Benny's voice continued, and now Selena could hear the exhaustion in his tone. You're worried about the media attention, about the fact that our relationship will always be scrutinized, about whether I can handle being with someone whose every move gets photographed and analyzed. But Mom, that's exactly why Selena needs someone who can handle it. She needs someone who loves her enough to deal with all the complications that come with loving her. There was a pause, during which Selena assumed his mother was responding, and then Benny's voice came again, softer now, but still determined. And about the lupus thing, Mom, that's not something that's going to affect our future children in the way you're worried about. Lupus isn't hereditary in that way. And even if it was, that wouldn't change how I feel about Selena or whether I want to build a family with her. The fact that you even brought that up tells me you've been researching her medical history, which honestly makes me uncomfortable. Selena's hands flew to her mouth as she realized the full scope of what she was hearing. Benny's family had been discussing not just her fame and career, but her medical condition and how it might affect their hypothetical future children. The lupus diagnosis that she'd been so vulnerable in sharing with Benny, the health condition that had required so much trust and openness to discuss, had become a topic of family conversation and concern. The betrayal she felt in that moment was devastating. She'd opened her heart to Benny about her deepest fears regarding her autoimmune condition, shared her worries about whether she'd be able to have children, confided in him about the medication she took and the lifestyle modifications she'd made. And now she was learning that these intimate details of her health had become discussion points in family conversations she wasn't privy to. No, Mom, I'm not going to wait and see how things develop. Benny's voice was getting firmer now. I'm planning to propose to her tomorrow night. I've had the ring for 2 months. I've planned everything down to the last detail. And I'm going to ask her to marry me because I love her and I want to spend my life with her, with or without your approval. The words hit Selena like a physical blow. Tomorrow night. He was planning to propose tomorrow night, and she was finding out about it, while simultaneously learning that his family had reservations about her that went far deeper than she'd ever imagined. The romantic surprise she should have been able to experience with pure joy was now tainted by the knowledge of family dynamics she'd never been made aware of. I need you to understand something, Mom, Benny continued, his voice now carrying a finality that suggested he was reaching the end of his patience. Selena is going to be part of this family, whether you're completely comfortable with that or not. I would prefer to have your blessing, but I'm going to marry her either way. So you can choose to embrace her and welcome her, or you can choose to create tension in our family. But I'm not choosing between you and her, because there's no choice to make. She's my future, and that's not up for debate. Selena couldn't listen anymore. Her heart was pounding so hard she was afraid she might pass out, and tears were already streaming down her face. She quietly made her way back to Benny's bedroom, closed the door softly, and sat on the edge of the bed trying to process everything she'd just heard. On one hand, hearing Benny defend her so passionately, hearing him declare his love and commitment so definitively to his family, should have been incredibly romantic and reassuring. And part of her heart did swell with love for this man who was willing to stand up to his family for their relationship. But on the other hand, learning that his family had concerns about her fame, her health condition, and their future together created a knot of anxiety in her stomach that she hadn't felt since the early days of their relationship, when she'd been worried about whether she was too much for him to handle. The lupus conversation particularly stung because it touched on one of her deepest insecurities. She'd always worried about how her autoimmune condition might affect her ability to have children, and knowing that Benny's family was also concerned about it made those fears feel more real and justified. It brought back memories of doctor appointments where she discussed the potential complications of pregnancy with lupus, the medications she'd need to adjust, the increased monitoring that would be required. When Benny came to bed an hour later, he found Selena lying on her side, facing away from him, seemingly asleep. He slipped into bed quietly, not wanting to wake her, but he could tell from her breathing that she wasn't actually sleeping. "Sel, you okay?" he whispered softly. "Just tired," she replied without turning around, her voice carefully neutral. Benny wanted to ask more, sensing that something was off, but he also didn't want to seem suspicious the night before he was planning to propose. Instead, he wrapped his arm around her gently and kissed the back of her neck, whispering, "I love you," before settling into sleep. But Selena lay awake for hours, replaying every word of the conversation she'd overheard and trying to figure out what she was going to do with the information. Should she confront Benny about it? Should she pretend she'd never heard anything? And most importantly, how was she supposed to react when he proposed tomorrow night, knowing that his family had reservations about their relationship that they'd never expressed to her directly? The next day was torture for both of them, though for completely different reasons. Benny spent the morning confirming final details with the restaurant, picking up the ring from the safety deposit box where he'd been keeping it, and trying to manage his own anxiety about the proposal. He'd never asked anyone to marry him before, and despite all his planning, he was terrified that something would go wrong or that Selena would somehow sense what was happening before the right moment. Meanwhile, Selena went through the motions of her normal routine, attending a rare beauty meeting, responding to emails, and trying to act normal while her mind raced with questions and doubts about everything she thought she knew about her relationship with Benny and his family. The next evening arrived with all the pomp and ceremony that Benny had planned. He picked Selena up at her house in a black Mercedes, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit that made his eyes look even more striking than usual. Selena had chosen a flowing white dress that she'd bought specifically for what she thought was just a special date night, not knowing she was inadvertently dressed perfectly for a proposal. "You look incredible," Benny said as she got into the car, and his nervous energy was palpable even though he was trying to appear calm and collected. "Thank you," Selena replied, forcing a smile. "You seem excited about tonight. What's the special occasion? Can't a guy just want to take his beautiful girlfriend out for an amazing dinner?" Benny replied, but there was something in his voice that confirmed what Selena already knew, that this wasn't just any dinner. The drive to Nobu was filled with casual conversation, but underneath the surface, both of them were dealing with their own internal turmoil. Benny was running through his proposal speech one more time in his head, making sure he remembered every word he wanted to say. Selena was trying to prepare herself emotionally for the moment when the man she loved would ask her to marry him, knowing that accepting would mean joining a family that had expressed doubts about whether she was the right fit. When they arrived at the restaurant, Selena immediately noticed that they were being seated in a private section she'd never seen before, decorated with candles and flowers that seemed far too elaborate for a regular dinner. Her suspicions were confirmed when she spotted the string quartet in the corner, preparing to play. "Benny, this is beautiful," she said, and she meant it, even as her heart was breaking a little bit knowing what was coming. "Only the best for you," he replied, taking her hand across the table. They ordered their usual dishes, black cod with miso for Selena, yellowtail jalapeno for Benny, and made conversation about work and upcoming projects, but there was an underlying tension that both of them could feel but neither wanted to address. Selena found herself studying Benny's face, looking for signs of the conversation she'd overheard the night before, while Benny was trying to gauge whether this felt like the right moment to transition into his proposal. It was during dessert that Benny finally made his move. The string quartet began playing "I Can't Get Enough," and Benny reached into his jacket pocket, his heart pounding so hard he was sure Selena could hear it. "Sel, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice shaking slightly with emotion. "Benny, wait," Selena interrupted, suddenly unable to handle the weight of what she knew was coming. "Before you say anything, I need to tell you something." The look on her face made Benny pause, the ring box still hidden in his hand. "What is it, babe? You look upset." Selena took a deep breath, knowing that this conversation was going to change everything between them, but also knowing that she couldn't accept a proposal without addressing what she'd overheard. "Last night, I overheard your phone conversation with your mom," she said quietly, watching as Benny's face immediately changed from nervous excitement to shock and concern. "Sel, I can explain," he started, but she held up her hand. "I heard her concerns about my career affecting yours, about my lupus affecting our future children, about whether I'm the right fit for your family," Selena continued, her voice getting stronger as she spoke. "And I heard you defending me, which I appreciate, but I also realize that you've been dealing with family pressure about our relationship that I knew nothing about." Benny set the ring box on the table between them, no longer trying to hide his original intention for the evening. "Selena, my mother's concerns don't reflect how I feel about you or our relationship." The string quartet began playing "I Can't Get Enough," and Benny reached into his jacket pocket, his heart pounding so hard he was sure Selena could hear it. "Sel, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice shaking slightly with emotion. "Benny, wait," Selena interrupted, suddenly unable to handle the weight of what she knew was coming. "Before you say anything, I need to tell you something." The look on her face made Benny pause, the ring box still hidden in his hand. "What is it, babe? You heard me defend you. You heard me tell her that I'm going to marry you regardless," of what she thinks. I did hear that, Selena replied, tears beginning to form in her eyes. But Benny, I can't marry into a family that has fundamental concerns about who I am as a person. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering if your parents think I'm good enough for you, or if they're worried about how my medical condition might affect their grandchildren. They'll come around, Benny said desperately, reaching for her hands. Sel, they just need time to get to know you better. My mom is protective, and she's never seen me this serious about anyone before. Her concerns come from a place of love for me, not from any real judgment about you. But Selena was shaking her head, the full weight of the situation finally hitting her. Benny, do you realize that you felt you had to choose between your family and me? That's not how relationships are supposed to work. When you marry someone, you're supposed to be joining families, not forcing your partner to win approval from people who have already decided they have concerns about fundamental aspects of who you are. What are you saying? Benny asked, his voice barely above a whisper, afraid of the answer he might receive. I'm saying that I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, but I can't say yes to a proposal when I know your family has reservations about me that run this deep. I need to know that when I marry you, I'm becoming part of family that wants me there, not one that's grudgingly accepting me because their son loves me. The conversation continued for another hour, with both of them crying, trying to figure out how to move forward when something as beautiful as an engagement proposal had been overshadowed by family dynamics that neither of them had fully addressed before that moment. But here's where the story takes a turn that would ultimately strengthen their relationship in ways neither of them expected. 3 days after the failed proposal, Benny made a decision that surprised everyone, including Selena. He invited his parents, his sister, and Selena to his house for dinner, with the explicit purpose of addressing the concerns that had been discussed behind closed doors. Mom, Dad, I need you to say directly to Selena any concerns you have about our relationship, Benny began once everyone was seated around his dining room table. Because she deserves to hear them from you, and she deserves the chance to address them, instead of me being caught in the middle trying to defend her against conversations she's not part of. What followed was one of the most difficult and ultimately transformative conversations any of them had ever had. Benny's mother, initially defensive and embarrassed that her private concerns had been overheard, eventually opened up about her fears for her son's privacy, his career independence, and yes, her concerns about lupus and future grandchildren. I've never been around someone famous before, she admitted to Selena directly. I don't know how to navigate a relationship where my son's personal life becomes public property. I'm scared that he'll lose himself trying to fit into your world. And I'm scared that you'll decide our family is too ordinary, too boring, compared to the life you're used to, she continued, tears forming in her eyes. I've seen what happens to celebrity couples in the media, and I don't want to watch my son's heart get broken on a global stage. About the lupus thing, Benny's mother continued, her voice getting quieter. I was researching it because I wanted to understand what you're dealing with, but I realize now that I was approaching it from a place of fear rather than support. I was worried about how it might affect any grandchildren I might have, but I didn't stop to think about how my concerns might make you feel or how invasive it was for me to be researching your medical condition without talking to you directly. Selena listened to every concern, acknowledged the fears that were based in legitimate worries, and gently corrected the misconceptions that were based on assumptions rather than reality. She talked about her own fears about lupus and pregnancy, her commitment to keeping their relationship as private as possible, and her genuine love for the simplicity and warmth of Benny's family. Most importantly, she shared her own vulnerabilities, her own fears about not being good enough for Benny, her worries about her health condition affecting their future, and her deep desire to be accepted by the people who mattered most to the man she loved. I understand your concerns about fame and privacy, Selena said, addressing Benny's mother directly. Those are valid worries, and they're things that Benny and I have talked about extensively. We both value privacy, and we've worked hard to keep our relationship out of the spotlight as much as possible. That's not going to change if we get married. As for the lupus, she continued, I appreciate that you were trying to educate yourself, but I wish you had come to me with questions instead of researching on your own. I'm happy to talk about my condition, my treatment, and yes, how it might affect pregnancy, because those are conversations we should be having as a family. By the end of the evening, Benny's mother was crying and apologizing. His father was giving Selena paternal advice about managing lupus symptoms, and his sister was already planning ways to include Selena in family traditions. I owe you an apology, Benny's mother said to Selena as they cleared the dinner dishes together. I let my fears and my protectiveness of Benny turn into judgment about you, and that wasn't fair. You're obviously a wonderful woman who loves my son deeply, and I should have taken the time to get to know you better instead of making assumptions. I understand protective instincts, Selena replied, helping to stack the plates. I have people in my life who are protective of me too, and sometimes that can come across as judgment when it's really just love and concern. I'm glad we could have this conversation and clear the air. 1 week later, Benny tried the proposal again. This time, it was at his family's house with his parents' blessing and their enthusiastic support. The ring was the same, but the context was completely different. Instead of trying to create a perfect romantic moment that existed separate from real life, Benny proposed in the middle of real life, surrounded by the family that would become Selena's family, with all the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of what their future would actually look like. Selena Gomez, he said, getting down on one knee in his childhood living room while his mother cried happy tears and his father took pictures. Will you marry me and become part of this crazy family that loves you just as much as I do? This time, when Selena said yes, it was with the knowledge that she wasn't just marrying Benny, but joining a family that had worked through their concerns and chosen to embrace her completely. 6 months later, at their engagement party, Benny's mother would give a speech about how Selena had taught their entire family the difference between protective love and possessive love, and how the strongest relationships are the ones that can survive difficult conversations and come out stronger on the other side. I thought my job as Benny's mother was to protect him from anything that might hurt him, she said, raising her glass to the couple. But Selena taught me that real protection means supporting the people you love in making choices that make them happy, even if those choices come with challenges you don't fully understand. Because sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that begin with the hardest conversations, where people choose to fight through their fears and misunderstandings to build something stronger than perfection. A relationship based on complete honesty, acceptance, and the courage to love each other's whole lives, including the families they come from and the families they're building together. Instead of trying to create a perfect romantic moment that existed separate from real life, Benny proposed in the middle of real life, surrounded by the family that would become Selena's family, with all the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of what their future would actually look like. Selena Gomez, he said, getting down on one knee in his childhood living room while his mother cried happy tears and his father took pictures. Will you marry me and become part of this crazy family that loves you just as much as I do? This time, when Selena said yes, it was with the knowledge that she wasn't just marrying Benny, but joining a family that had worked through their concerns and chosen to embrace her completely. What do you think about this incredible story of love, family acceptance, and the courage to have difficult conversations? Have you ever had to navigate family concerns about your relationship? Share your thoughts about how real love sometimes requires fighting for acceptance and understanding. Because sometimes the most meaningful proposals aren't the ones that go exactly according to plan, but the ones that happen after you've proven that your love is strong enough to survive the messiest, most complicated parts of building a life together.